She begged for his seed, but he refused, until she awakened him, the shocking reason why. An ancient and beautiful alien empress pleads with an old human man to sire the next generation of her species, but he refuses, ashamed that his body is not what it once was. Yet, when she presses her soft lips against his, something stirs deep within him, something long thought lost. What happens next will change both of their destinies forever. The throne room of Empress Velethia shimmered with soft, golden light. The walls pulsed as if alive, their crystalline structure humming with unseen energy. Velethia sat upon a throne carved from a rare, luminescent stone, her violet skin glowing beneath the floating orbs of starlight. Her long, silken hair, silvered like the moons of Exilivani, flowed down her back as she gazed at the elders before her. They were ancient, their once proud figures now frail and weary. The Exilivani race, once the rulers of 1,000 worlds, was dying. Their men had lost the ability to create life, and without new children, their species would fade into history. One of the elders, High Chancellor Mizari, stepped forward, his golden eyes dim with sorrow. "Empress, we have exhausted all options. Our scientists, our healers, even our mystics have failed. There is but one path left." Velethia already knew what he would say. The old legends spoke of a time when the Exilivani were not alone in the stars. There was another race, one with unmatched vitality, strength, and a will to survive against all odds. Humans. "The Council has located him," Mizari continued. "The one who carries the purest bloodline. The last hope of our people." Velethia's fingers tightened against the armrest of her throne. She had read the reports. A human male, once a brilliant scientist, had disappeared decades ago. He had rejected his own people and vanished into the void, leaving behind nothing but whispers. Dr. Marcus Voss. The name tasted strange on her lips. He was old now, far beyond the years of his prime. Yet the Exilivani had ways of restoring what was lost. She rose to her feet, her flowing robes parting like water. "Prepare my vessel," she commanded. "I will bring him back myself." The elders exchanged glances. It was unthinkable for an empress to go on such a mission. But Velethia was not like the rulers before her. She would not sit and watch her people die. She would claim this human, one way or another. The desolate moon. Far from the splendor of Exilivani, Marcus Voss sat alone in his quiet refuge. His home was a cold, forgotten moon, orbiting the ruins of an abandoned space station. The days were long, the nights silent, and he preferred it that way. Once he had been a man of purpose, a scientist, a researcher, someone who pushed the boundaries of knowledge. Now he was just an old man, tired and waiting for the years to take him. He glanced at his reflection in the cracked metal panel of his workstation. His once dark hair was now silver, his sharp blue eyes dulled by time. His body, once strong, had grown weaker, a relic of a past life. The universe had moved on without him, and he was fine with that. But the universe was not done with him. A sudden tremor shook the ground beneath him. The walls of his shelter groaned, dust falling from the ceiling. Marcus reached for his worn-out blaster, his heartbeat steady despite the disturbance. He had lived long enough to expect trouble. Outside, the night sky split apart. A ship, smooth, organic, glowing with an eerie golden light, descended from the heavens. It was unlike any human vessel. Alien. Marcus narrowed his eyes as the ship landed. A faint hiss filled the air as the door opened, and she stepped out. Tall, graceful, and otherworldly, Empress Velethia stood before him, her golden gaze locking onto his. For the first time in years, Marcus felt something stir inside him. It wasn't desire. It was foreboding. Something told him that his quiet life was about to end. Forever. Marcus stood still, his fingers gripping his blaster as the alien woman approached. Empress Velethia moved with unnatural grace, her long, flowing robes shifting like liquid silver. Her golden eyes studied him, unblinking, filled with something he couldn't quite place: determination, curiosity, desperation. The ship behind her pulsed with faint golden light, almost like it was alive. Marcus had seen many things in his long life, but this was something else. Dr. Marcus Voss. Velethia spoke, her voice smooth like a song. You are exactly as I expected. Marcus scoffed, lowering his blaster but keeping it close. Then you expected an old man on a dead rock. Her lips curled slightly at the corners. I expected a man of great intelligence, a man with the power to save an entire species. Marcus narrowed his eyes. I'm no savior. Velethia took another step forward. Up close, she was breathtaking, her violet skin glowing under the dim moonlight. Her silver hair shimmered with every movement, and her form, it was almost too perfect, like something sculpted by an artist. You are the last hope of the HFY, she continued. Our people are dying. The men of my kind have lost their ability to create life. But humans, your kind is different. You can still give life. Marcus let out a tired sigh. I think you've got the wrong man for that job. Velethia tilted her head slightly. You underestimate yourself. Marcus took a step back. He had lived in solitude for decades. He had left behind the chaos of human civilization, the wars, the greed, the endless conflicts. He had no interest in saving another species, especially not like this. I don't know what you think I can do, he said firmly, but I'm not that man anymore. Velethia studied him for a long moment. Then, without warning, she reached out, placing a cool, soft hand against his chest. Marcus tensed. Her touch sent a strange warmth through him, something unfamiliar yet comforting. Our science is far beyond your understanding, she whispered. Age means nothing to us. Weakness can be undone. If you agree to help me, I will restore what time has taken from you. Marcus clenched his jaw. He knew what she meant. She was offering him something he hadn't had in years: youth, vitality, strength. For a brief moment, he felt the temptation. But then he stepped away. No, he said firmly. Velethia's golden eyes widened slightly, as if she had never been refused before. Why? Marcus exhaled, rubbing a hand over his face. Because that part of my life is over. I don't need to be young again. I don't need that. He saw something flicker in her expression. Not anger, not frustration. Something deeper. You are afraid, she said softly. Marcus stiffened. No, I'm just realistic. Velethia watched him carefully. Then, in a slow, deliberate motion, she took another step closer. I see now, she murmured. It is not just your body that has aged, but your heart. Marcus frowned, but before he could speak, Velethia did something unexpected. She lifted herself onto her toes and pressed her lips gently against his. A soft electric sensation flooded through his body, like a dormant fire suddenly reigniting. His breath hitched, his fingers twitched, a warmth spread through his veins, deep and pulsing. His heart pounded, a feeling he thought was lost to time. Velethia pulled away, her golden eyes studying his face. A small, knowing smile formed on her lips. You see, she whispered, some things never truly fade. Marcus stood frozen, his mind spinning. Something had changed, and now he wasn't sure if he could keep saying no. Marcus staggered back, his breath uneven. His body still tingled from Velethia's kiss, a warmth spreading through his limbs like a flame rekindled after years of cold. He clenched his fists, trying to suppress the sensation, but the alien empress just stood there, watching him, waiting. What did you do? Marcus finally growled. His voice was rough, but beneath it, there was something else. Fear, longing. He wasn't sure. Velethia tilted her head slightly, her silver hair catching the dim glow of the ship's lights. I awakened what time had put to sleep. Marcus exhaled sharply. His heart was pounding, stronger than it had in years. "This is impossible," he muttered. He had accepted his age long ago. He had accepted the decay, the slowing of his body. And yet, one kiss from this woman, and something ancient and primal stirred inside him. Velethia stepped forward, her golden eyes burning with something unreadable. "You have spent too long denying what you are. You are not just a mind, Marcus Voss. You are flesh. You are desire. You are life." Marcus shook his head, trying to clear his thoughts. "You don't understand. I walked away from all of that. Velethia interrupted him, her voice calm yet unwavering. "You think yourself broken, but you are not." She reached out, her cool fingers tracing lightly against his forearm. The touch sent another spark through him. His breath hitched. Damn it. Marcus forced himself to step back. Distance. He needed distance. "Whatever you're offering, I can't accept it." His voice was firm, but even he could hear the slight tremor in it. Velethia sighed softly, folding her arms beneath her chest. "You fear this because you fear disappointment. You fear that even if I restore your strength, you will fail. That you are still unworthy." Marcus looked away, his jaw tightening. She wasn't wrong. He had loved once. He had been a man once. A husband, a leader, a warrior. But time took everything from him. His wife, his youth, his purpose. Now he was just an old man surviving in the void. But now, this alien woman, this impossibly beautiful empress, stood before him, asking him to step back into the light. And worse, his body was responding. A deep, unfamiliar warmth spread through his limbs, and he felt a strength he hadn't felt in decades. His muscles, once weak, felt taut. His skin, once cold, felt alive. Velethia watched him carefully. "Do you truly wish to waste this second chance?" Marcus swallowed hard. He didn't answer. Because the truth was, he didn't know anymore. For the first time in years, the weight of time felt lighter, and it terrified him. Marcus sat on the edge of the sleek, silver bed in the Empress's chamber, his hands gripping his knees. The warmth still pulsed through his body, but he was afraid to trust it. Was this real, or just some cruel trick of the mind? Velethia stood near him, watching, waiting. The glow of the chamber's soft lights made her skin shimmer like polished pearl, her silver hair flowing down her back like liquid moonlight. Everything about her felt otherworldly, yet at the same time, she was so close, so tangible. Marcus exhaled, shaking his head. "I don't understand." Velethia knelt before him, resting a hand on his thigh. Not forceful, not demanding, just gentle. "What is it that you fear, Marcus?" He scoffed, running a hand over his grizzled face. "I fear that I'll wake up, and this will all be gone. That I'll be the same old man again. That I'll feel that emptiness again." His voice was rough, raw. "You don't know what it's like to watch yourself fade." Velethia's golden eyes softened. "But you haven't faded. You only convinced yourself that you have." Marcus tensed when she slid her other hand over his chest, resting it against his heart. His breath hitched. He could feel it. His pulse was stronger. Stronger than it had been in years. "I didn't do this," she murmured. "I only reminded your body of what it was always capable of." Marcus's throat went dry. He wanted to believe her, but after years of feeling weak, of feeling like his best days were behind him, how could he? He reached up, grasping her wrist. "Why me?" he asked, his voice almost a whisper. "You could have any man in the galaxy. Why an old broken soldier like me?" Velethia smiled then, not mocking, not amused, but warm. "Because you are not broken. You are not weak. You are Marcus Voss, a man who has endured, who has fought, who has lived. And that is what makes you worthy." Marcus swallowed hard. The air between them felt heavy, charged. Velethia leaned in, her breath brushing against his ear. "Let me prove it to you." His grip on her wrist tightened slightly. His body responded in a way that shocked him, a way he thought was impossible. He closed his eyes, breathing deeply. For the first time in decades, he felt like a man again. But was he ready to accept it? A deep silence settled between them. Marcus could hear nothing but the rhythmic hum of the alien chamber, soft, like a heartbeat. His own heart pounded in his chest, his pulse steady and strong. It had been a long time since he had felt this, alive. Velethia remained close, watching him with those golden, knowing eyes. Her presence was not demanding but patient, waiting. Marcus exhaled slowly. "You're telling me this isn't a trick? No technology, no chemicals, no enhancements?" Velethia shook her head. "No trick, Marcus. No illusion. Your body was never broken. It only forgot its own strength." He wanted to argue, wanted to insist that this wasn't possible. But deep inside, he felt it. The energy coursing through him wasn't artificial. It was his own vitality, his own power. He clenched his hands into fists, then slowly released them. His body didn't ache like before. The years of exhaustion that had weighed him down were gone. Velethia tilted her head, studying him. "Do you believe me now?" Marcus hesitated. Belief was difficult after so many years of decline. But right now, in this moment, he felt like a different man. He met her gaze. "I don't know what to believe anymore." A small smile touched her lips. "Then let me show you." She reached out and took his hand. Her touch was warm, gentle, yet firm. Marcus allowed her to guide him as she rose to her feet. The chamber's soft lights pulsed as if responding to their movement. The air between them felt electric. For years, Marcus had thought his time had passed, that he was merely a relic of a past war, a man whose days of strength and purpose were behind him. But here, standing before a being as radiant and powerful as Velethia, he felt different. She placed a hand over his chest, right above his heart. Thump, thump, thump. Strong, steady, real. "You were never weak," she murmured. "Only waiting." Marcus swallowed. Waiting for what? For a reason to remember who you are. A deep breath filled his lungs. His body felt right. For the first time in years, he wasn't haunted by pain or regret. He wasn't empty anymore. A slow smile crept onto his face. He looked down at Velethia. This alien empress. This impossible woman. And for the first time in a long time, he allowed himself to hope. Perhaps his story wasn't over after all. Marcus took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of Velethia's touch still lingering on his skin. It was as if something inside him had awakened, a fire long forgotten, now burning bright once more. His mind raced with questions, but one truth remained clear. He was not the man he thought he had become. For years, he had accepted the slow decay of his body, the quiet fading of his strength. But now, standing before Velethia, he felt alive, powerful, whole. Velethia watched him carefully, her golden eyes searching his face. "You are stronger than you know, Marcus. Your kind was never meant to wither away in the dark. You are a warrior, a force of will, of life itself." Marcus ran a hand over his grizzled jaw. "A warrior, huh? I used to be one. A long time ago." "You still are," she said firmly. Her confidence in him made something inside his chest tighten. He had spent so many years believing his best days were behind him. That time had stripped him of everything that made him who he was. But now he wasn't so sure. He exhaled, looking up at the towering ceiling of the chamber. Glowing symbols pulsed faintly along the walls, ancient and unknowable. This place was unlike anything he had ever seen, yet it felt strangely familiar, like home. Velethia stepped closer, her presence commanding yet inviting. Do you feel it now? The energy within you. Marcus flexed his fingers. He did feel it. His body, once sluggish and heavy, now felt strong, capable. It wasn't just some alien trick. This was real. And that terrified him. Why me? He asked, his voice quieter now. Why choose me, out of all the people in the galaxy? Valethia's expression softened. Because you are different. You do not seek power, yet it flows through you. You do not demand loyalty, yet it follows you. Your kind, your people, are more than you realize, Marcus. More than even you have dared to believe. Marcus felt the weight of her words. Humanity had always been seen as fragile compared to the great empires of the stars, a race struggling to find its place among the giants. But what if that wasn't true? What if humans were more than just survivors? Valethia lifted a hand, palm facing upward. A soft, golden light swirled into existence above her fingers, flickering like a tiny sun. Your people have something that many others do not. A will so strong it defies nature itself. She closed her hand, and the light vanished. You were not meant to fade away, Marcus, she whispered. You were meant to rise. Something in his chest stirred. A deep, buried instinct, the kind that had driven him to fight, to endure, to never surrender even when the odds were stacked against him. For the first time in years, he felt hungry for life again. A slow smile crept across his lips. I think I believe you. Valethia smiled back. Then your journey is only beginning. Marcus nodded, rolling his shoulders, feeling the energy coursing through him. For so long, he had let the years steal his strength, his purpose. But not anymore. Not when there was still so much left to do. Marcus stood in the center of the ancient chamber, his heart pounding like a war drum. The energy coursing through his veins felt unnatural, yet right. As if his body had remembered something his mind had long forgotten. Valethia circled him slowly, her golden eyes watching his every movement. She was testing him, waiting to see if he could handle the gift she had given him. Your body is strong, she said, her voice smooth like flowing silk. But strength alone is not enough. Marcus smirked. I figured as much. With a flick of her wrist, the air around them shifted. A faint hum vibrated through the chamber, and suddenly, ghostly figures emerged from the shadows. Tall warriors, cloaked in ancient armor, their hollow eyes burning with eerie blue light. Marcus tensed. I take it they're not here to talk. Valethia tilted her head, her silver hair cascading over her shoulder. No, they are here to test you. The first warrior lunged. Fast. Faster than anything Marcus had ever faced. But something inside him had awakened. His body moved on its own, reacting before his mind could process. He sidestepped the strike, his muscles tightening as he swung his fist. Crack. The warrior shattered like glass, disappearing into dust. Marcus froze. That shouldn't have been possible. The second warrior charged, this time from behind. But again, his body reacted. A step to the left, a sharp turn, a perfectly timed counterstrike. Another enemy fell. Marcus stared at his own hands. They felt different, stronger, faster. Valethia watched with quiet satisfaction. You are remembering, aren't you? Marcus breathed heavily, shaking his head. Remembering what? That you are more than flesh and bone. The third warrior rushed at him, its massive blade slicing through the air. Marcus didn't have time to think. He simply moved. With inhuman precision, he dodged the attack and disarmed the warrior in a single motion. The final enemy hesitated. Marcus locked eyes with it, and for a moment there was understanding. Then the warrior knelt before him. Valethia smiled. Now you see. Marcus swallowed hard, his body still humming with energy. He had spent years believing he was just an old soldier, past his prime, waiting for time to take what little remained of him. But that was a lie. He was more. Valethia stepped closer. Your kind was never weak, Marcus. You were simply waiting to awaken. He met her gaze, his mind still reeling from the power surging through him. What happens now? She reached out, her hand hovering just above his chest. The warmth of her touch sent another surge of energy through his body. Now, she whispered, you embrace what you were always meant to be. For the first time in years, Marcus didn't feel like an old man. He felt unstoppable. Marcus stood tall, his breath steady, his body no longer frail, no longer weak. Energy pulsed through him, each heartbeat sending waves of power through his veins. He clenched his fists, feeling the raw strength he had long thought lost. Velethia stepped forward, her golden eyes gleaming with approval. You feel it now, don't you? He nodded, his gaze unwavering. I do. But why me? Why now? She smiled, placing a delicate hand on his chest. A warmth spread through him, deeper than anything he had ever felt. Because you were never meant to fade into nothing, Marcus. You were always meant for more. He scoffed. I was just an old man. Velethia shook her head. No, you were a warrior forced into sleep. I merely woke you up. Marcus exhaled slowly, looking down at his hands. They no longer trembled with age, but pulsed with raw potential. It was as if he had been waiting for this moment his entire life, without even knowing it. Suddenly, the chamber trembled. The warriors of the past, the spirits that had tested him, began to fade away. Their duty was done. The test was over. Velethia took a step back, her silver hair flowing around her as she raised her hand. A doorway of light opened behind her, leading to something unknown, something beyond. Marcus glanced at her. What happens now? She extended her hand toward him, her expression soft yet filled with something ancient, something powerful. You step into your true self. Marcus hesitated, not out of fear, but out of understanding. He knew the moment he crossed that threshold, there would be no going back, no more quiet nights, no more regrets about the past, only the future. He looked into her eyes one last time. In them, he saw centuries of wisdom, endless stars, and something he never expected to see again, hope. A slow smile spread across his face. All right. He took her hand and stepped into destiny.